This video covers the IGCSE Biology Objective 3.1.4 on the 2025 CAIE syllabus to describe the importance of diffusion of gases and solutes in living organisms. So let's just look in general at plants and animals, or humans in this case. So we know that there is a relationship between plants and animals where plants release oxygen and that is taken in by animals. Animals release carbon dioxide and that is taken in by plants, and both of those molecules, as they're taken into the respective organisms, are needed for different processes in those living things. So other types of molecules that could be taken in besides these gas molecules of oxygen and carbon dioxide are dissolved molecules. These are called solutes. We're talking about things like amino acids. We're talking about things like glucose and mineral ions. And all of these are needed by both plants and animals in order to make energy and in order to make food, in the case of plants, to build proteins, and to build other structures. So all of these are needed by both plants and animals. All right, so when we're talking about the diffusion of gases, we're talking about molecules that need to be able to diffuse, i.e. move without energy, to keep living things alive. That is the importance of the diffusion of the gases. These gases are there to keep living things alive. So, for example, we've already talked about in the previous video the diffusion of gas molecules in the lungs of animals. And this is called gas exchange because the oxygen is moving into the blood and the carbon dioxide is moving out of the blood. And the way that these gas molecules exchange places is through the process of diffusion. Without it, animals would not stay alive. Now, there is a similar system of gas exchange in plants as well. Through the guard cells at the bottom of the leaves, there are these openings called stomata. That is many. Stoma is just one. So in this case, we have one stoma here. And so here is where we have gas exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen, which would allow for the process of photosynthesis in the leaf cells, which are the palisade cells that are at the top of the diagram. So in this case, the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse in to the leaf, and the oxygen, which is produced through photosynthesis, is going to diffuse out of the leaf. And the process of how this happens will go into much more detail when we get into the syllabus sections on plants. So you don't have to worry too much about the nitty-gritty on this, but just that the process of gas exchange also happens in the leaf of a plant, and this is where carbon dioxide would enter due to concentration gradient, and oxygen would exit due to concentration gradient. Okay, so let's talk about the diffusion of solutes. So solutes are basically dissolved molecules. These dissolved molecules, we're talking about things like amino acids, we're talking about mineral ions, for example, in plants, we're talking about magnesium ions, nitrate ions, phosphate ions. In animals, maybe we're talking about sodium ions, chloride ions, potassium ions. For the minerals, there's glucose, there's amino acids that need to be used in the cells to build proteins, like things like enzymes and things like hormones and etc., build other parts of cells. So these dissolved molecules need to move. And so they need to move through living things in order to reach the cells and to also leave the cells. And this is also to maintain the life of the organism. So again, the importance of this diffusion is to maintain the life of the organism. The whole point is stay alive. All right, so as we look at plants, and again, this is just a brief overview. We're not going to get into how all of this happens. We will when we talk about plants. and transport in plants. But plants have vascular systems, that is, tubes that allow for movement of molecules. And so we know that photosynthesis happens in the leaf, and what is produced in photosynthesis is glucose. And so the glucose needs to be able to move to different parts of the plant in order for the plant to use that food as energy in respiration. So the plant also is going to do respiration in order to grow and to move and to reproduce and all of those things. The other thing that happens in the transport of plants is that water and minerals are going to need to move from the roots, where they get absorbed, throughout the entire plant in order to maintain the life of the plant. So again, we need to have diffusion of all of those molecules so that this movement can happen and get to the areas of lower concentration where they are needed. Additionally, in animals, so here we're just looking at a plain old animal cell here, we have molecules that need to move in and molecules that need to move out. And so oxygen molecules are going to have already been dissolved into the blood via the alveoli, and eventually those molecules will get to cells, and so the oxygen molecules can diffuse into the cells, which have already been doing respiration and therefore have already used up the oxygen molecules that they previously had. And then they will produce carbon dioxide molecules, and because the cell has so many carbon dioxide molecules, because of respiration, those molecules will diffuse out into the blood, which has a very low level, because remember, the carbon dioxide has already left the body in the lungs. So what's coming to the cells is oxygenated blood that has only small levels, if any, of carbon dioxide. So the concentration gradient is in the favor of oxygen moving into the cells and carbon dioxide moving out. Additionally, in the blood, we'll also be carrying dissolved food molecules, in this case glucose, which is a soluble molecule, so it dissolves into the blood plasma. This also will diffuse into the cells in order for respiration to occur, because again, respiration requires oxygen and glucose for the process to create energy.